Amitabha. From the Sutra. Also present were the Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, Manjusri, Prince of the Dharma, the Bodhisattva Ajita, the Invincible, the Bodhisattvas Gandhahastan and Nityodutta, and other such great Bodhisattvas. A Bodhisattva is a sentient being who has developed the Bodhi mind, the compassionate mind in which every thought is to attain enlightenment for self and all others. They can manifest as monastics or lay people, male or female, and can be of any age, occupation, or social position. Bodhisattvas go to the Buddha lands in the 10 directions to teach and help all beings. Some of these lands are magnificently adorned with 7 jewels, but others are very polluted or unpleasant. Where there is an affinity, the Bodhisattvas will go there, whether a situation is favorable or not. Moreover, they do not like or dislike any situation. In other words, they travel around all the Buddha lands without feeling attachment or aversion. Neither do they give rise to any thought or discrimination. As the Infinite Life Sutra says, the Bodhisattvas are pure, firm, calm, and joyous, and their vows are steadfast and unmoving. Bodhisattvas practice to eradicate their ignorance. As they do so, they progress in their cultivation through 51 levels of attainment. The first 40 levels comprise 10 levels of faith, 10 levels of abiding, 10 levels of practice, and 10 levels of dedication. Following these 40 levels are the Mahasattva levels of the great Bodhisattvas, comprising any of the 10 levels of ground, or the highest Bodhisattva level, that of equal enlightenment. Having progressed through these 51 levels, Bodhisattvas realize the ultimate attainment, Buddhahood. To understand the difference between Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and ordinary people, consider an analogy of tightly wound metal coils. Buddhas, perfectly enlightened beings, are like coils that are completely unwound, perfectly straightened out. Bodhisattvas, partially enlightened beings, are like coils in the process of straightening out. Ordinary people in this world, being totally unenlightened, are like stubborn coils that remain tightly wound. Not yet having eradicated the first erroneous view of the affliction of views, the view of self, they are still attached to their physical body, thinking of it as self. Thus engrossed, ordinary sentient beings think of self-benefit before thinking of benefiting others. Such thinking leads them to harm others. What about bodhisattvas? Bodhisattvas have no thoughts of harming others. They selflessly come to this world to help beings awaken. The first bodhisattva named in the sutra was Manjusri. While the Buddha is known as the king of the Dharma, Manjusri is called the prince of the Dharma. King refers to comfort and freedom. The Buddha, having mastered the Dharma, achieved absolute comfort and freedom. Thus, he is the king of the Dharma. Manjusri is the prince because he continues the Buddha's work. Of all the bodhisattvas at the Amitabha assembly, Manjusri was the foremost in wisdom. As we learned previously, of the Arhats, Sariputra was the foremost in wisdom. So among both the bodhisattvas and the Arhats, those who were foremost in wisdom were named first in their respective sections of the sutra. This carries a very profound meaning. To choose and practice this Dharma door, one must have wisdom. What is our foremost wisdom? Being mindful of and chanting Amitabha Buddha's name. The second bodhisattva named in the sutra was Ajita. Known as Ajita in India, he is called Maitreya in China. His name is translated as invincible, meaning that no one can surpass him in compassion. His compassion, based on wisdom, is sincere, pure, and impartial. It pervades the entire Dharma realm, all of time and space. Sincerity is a mind without wandering thoughts, discriminations, and attachments. Purity is a mind without attachments. Impartiality is interacting with all phenomena without discriminatory thoughts, attachments, or expectations. Having wisdom is having the ability to know the difference between true and false, proper and deviated, right and wrong, and beneficial and harmful, while still interacting with phenomena appropriately. Could Maitreya's compassion be called love? In light of the definitions just given, no, because compassion and love are not the same. Love, arising from emotions and not from wisdom, is capricious, insincere, impure, and biased. Love is what unawakened people feel for certain individuals. Compassion, on the other hand, arises from wisdom, not emotions. Sincere, pure, and impartial. Compassion is what Buddhas and Bodhisattvas feel toward all beings, while love flows from attachments and discriminations. Compassion flows from the true nature. What is the true nature? It is one of the terms that Sakyamuni Buddha used for Buddha nature, the true and immutable nature of all beings. As Venerable Master Ching Kong said in his lectures on the Amitabha Sutra, when the Buddha spoke of the true nature, he only said, inconceivable. In other words, we cannot understand it with our mind or explain it with words. Words are too limited to describe the truth. there is a limit to our thinking and imagination. The limit is our store consciousness. The true nature is not the store consciousness, so it is beyond detection. Maitreya Bodhisattva will become the next Buddha in our world. In the sutras, different terms and words, such as world and Buddha land, referred to a great galaxy in which one Buddha dwells and teaches. So saying that Maitreya will be the next Buddha in our world means he can do so anywhere in our great galaxy. Where will beings in the Western Pure Land become a Buddha? Wherever they have an affinity to do so. When can they do so? In one lifetime. When we have belief, have made the vow, and mindfully chant Amitabha Buddha's name at the end of our life, as we are breathing our last breaths, we can see him come to guide us to the Western Pure Land. We will discard our physical body and go with him at that point. Then, in the Pure Land, we will continue our learning and practice. Gradually, degree by degree, our ignorance will be eliminated. When completely eliminated, we will then be able to become a Buddha in whatever Buddha land in which we have an affinity with the beings, and when those beings' conditions have matured. In that same lifetime. The third bodhisattva named in the sutra was Gandhahastan, whose name means no resting. The fourth bodhisattva was Nityodutta, whose name means making constant progress. These two bodhisattvas encourage us to practice. They teach us that when we learn and practice the Pure Land method, we should have no doubt, no interruption, and no intermingling with other teachings. The presence in the Amitabha assembly of these four equal enlightenment bodhisattvas is profoundly significant for us. Here are beings one level below Buddhahood, learning this teaching about the Pure Land. How can we fail to follow their example? We need to believe in this Dharma door, vow to be born in the Western Pure Land, and be diligent in our practice. Nothing is more important to us than mindfully chanting Amitabha Buddha's name. Other practices, such as visualization, meditation, and mantra recitation, are not necessary for us. We just mindfully chant the Buddha name. This chanting is the simplest and easiest method, a supreme method taught by all Buddhas. From the Sutra. Also present was Sakra, the king of the gods, along with countless numbers of heavenly beings, making up a great assembly. Sakra, the king of the gods, is the king of the Trayastrimsa heaven, the second lowest of the 6 heavens in the desire realm. Although there are countless numbers of heavenly beings, he is specifically named because his heaven is close to the human path. Most people are not aware of the higher heavens of the desire realm, much less those in the form and formless realms, because those heavens are too far away from us. Sakra, however, is known and respected in this world. Therefore, Sakyamuni Buddha used him to represent all heavenly beings. Next in the sutra, we will learn about the Pure Land Dharma door, a teaching that Sakyamuni Buddha said, all beings in all worlds find hard to believe. Hard indeed, for as it is often said, this Dharma door is the easiest to practice, but the most difficult to believe. Those who cannot believe in it, but believe in other methods, will need 3 asankaya kalpas to attain Buddhahood. Those who believe in the Pure Land method and sincerely practice it will need only 1 lifetime. This achievement is the incredible result of belief. Very simply, there was not enough time for Sakyamuni to explain everything to us. Our lifespan here is just too short. Our birth in the Western Pure Land will give us all the time we need to learn and practice. Consider the Buddha's response to a monk who asked him some metaphysical questions. To help this monk focus on the immediate goal of his practice and not waste precious time, the Buddha posited a story of a man who was shot with a poisoned arrow. A doctor was found, but before the man would agree to the treatment, he wanted to know certain things. What caste was the archer? What was his name and clan? Where was he from? What town or city? Was he tall or short? Dark or fair? What kind of bow and style of shaft did he use? What kind of sinew was used on the arrow? What was the bowstring made of? What kind of bird were the feathers from? The wounded man would die before he could hear all the answers. We are like this wounded man who was running out of time and should have just trusted the good doctor. We should believe Sakyamuni Buddha, whose life and attainment proved the validity of his teachings, and use the method he prescribed for us. When we are out of danger in the Pure Land, we will have all the time required to learn all that we wish and need to learn. From the Sutra. At that time, Buddha said to the elder Sariputra, west of here, past 100 billion Buddha lands, there exists a world called ultimate bliss. In this land there is a Buddha called Amitabha, who is preaching the Dharma right now. Sakyamuni Buddha spoke of a world west of here to help us understand where the Pure Land is in relation to our world. He further explained that it lies past 100 billion Buddha lands. A Buddha land is a great galaxy in which one Buddha dwells and teaches. And so from the aspect of phenomenon, 100 billion Buddha lands is an inconceivable distance from us. Fortunately, from the aspect of noumenon, of principle, the Pure Land is already within our true nature. Sakyamuni Buddha said, there exists a world to ensure that no doubt arises in the listener. This world does indeed exist. Telling us it is called ultimate bliss is done to encourage us to vow to be born there, not in our world that is called endurance. In this land there is a Buddha called Amitabha. Saying that Amitabha Buddha is in that land is done to assure us that he is neither a figment of imagination nor a being who will come into existence sometime in the distant future. He is real, and he already exists in his Pure Land. By mindfully chanting his name, a cause, we will form a connection with him and be born in his land. The effect. When we vow to be born in the Pure Land, he will know. He will be aware that we want to end our suffering. And with infinite patience, he will wait for us to form a connection with him. How do we do this? By single-mindedly chanting his name. And for how long? For the rest of our life. But most crucially, when we are breathing our last breaths. It is as if Amitabha is always reaching out to us with a perfectly steady hand. But our hand, moving erratically all the time, a symbol of our thoughts jumping from one thing to another, must first be stilled before we can take his. By single-mindedly repeating Amitabha's name as we are breathing our last breaths, our finally still mind will resonate with his, and we will be as one. He will come, just as he vowed, to guide us to his land of ultimate bliss. Preaching the Dharma right now tells us that in the Pure Land, Amitabha Buddha is currently teaching the Dharma. He has been doing so since he became a Buddha 10 kalpas ago. In comparison, Sakyamuni Buddha taught the Dharma in this world for just 49 years. These 49 years of teaching were so difficult for him to do because our world has a terrible learning environment. It is even worse today, for we are now in the Dharma ending age. People today have very short lives and little time to learn and practice. They have deep-seated bad habits and numerous afflictions, not the least of which are selfishness, greed, anger, ignorance, and arrogance. They have long established worldly desires, including those for food, sleep, sensory indulgence, fame, prestige, wealth. Absorbed in all these afflictions and desires, people have not created the necessary conditions for Buddhas to come here often to teach. Maitreya Bodhisattva will not come to our world to become a Buddha for another 5,670 million years. This multi-million-year gap between the two Buddhas, Sakyamuni and Maitreya, shows how incredibly rare it is in our world, our Buddha land, to be able to learn directly from a Buddha. The Western Pure Land, however, has an excellent learning environment. Amitabha has been teaching there for kalpas. in that time, uncountable beings in that land have eradicated their afflictions and allowed none to develop. They have erased all bad habits and strengthened their good habits. From this, we can see why a superior learning environment is so important. While there are uncountable beings in the Pure Land now, initially there were none. Where did they come from? These beings, with their abundance of good roots, good fortune, and causal connections, came from worlds in all the 10 directions. Having good roots means that they believed and comprehended the teachings in this sutra. We can too. Having good fortune means that they were willing to practice according to the teachings and were able to succeed in that practice. We can too. They developed good roots and good fortune within themselves. We can too. Causal connections are external factors and refer to favorable conditions. The most significant favorable condition is to meet a genuinely good teacher who introduces and teaches this Dharma door to us. It is an incredibly rare opportunity to hear of such an ideal land for learning and practice. If we want to be born there, we too must have abundant good roots, good fortune, and favorable causal connections. We may be able to rely on others to help us where favorable connections are concerned, but we have to cultivate good roots and good fortune ourselves. From the Sutra. Why is this land called ultimate bliss? It is called ultimate bliss because the sentient beings in this land are free from the myriad sufferings common to mankind and only know every kind of joy. Although Sakyamuni Buddha was talking to Sariputra, he was addressing all those in the assembly and those of us to come. Throughout the Amitabha Sutra, Sakyamuni Buddha asked several questions and then proceeded to answer every one himself, while Sariputra remained silent. For him, the wisest of the Arhats do not even attempt an answer to any of Sakyamuni's questions, indicates how profound this sutra is. Why is this land called ultimate bliss? Is the first question Sakyamuni Buddha posed. When Sariputra respectfully did not respond, Sakyamuni began to describe the myriad wonders in the Pure Land, starting with its name. The name of the land is ultimate bliss, because the sentient beings there have overcome their afflictions through mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha. No longer acting from greed, anger, and ignorance, or from a mind that has wandering thoughts, discriminations, and attachments. The beings are always blissful. The name of the land reflects this great joy. Thus the beings in that land are free from the myriad sufferings common to mankind. Buddhism summarizes these as 8 types of suffering. The first suffering is birth. An unborn baby not only has form, but also feelings and consciousness. Sakyamuni explained that due to feelings and consciousness, the baby feels pain while in the womb. At birth, the baby finds itself being expelled from the womb and pushed through the narrow birth canal. Thrust from the only environment that it knows, it suddenly encounters one that is very different. Air instead of fluid, light instead of darkness, coolness instead of warmth. First pain, then shock. Little wonder babies cry at birth. The second suffering is old age. As we age, we find that our energy is not what it used to be. Experiencing aches and pains, we are more sensitive to heat and cold. Wanting to remember a name, we cannot. Wanting to see or hear something, we realize that these senses have weakened with time. Wishing to move hurriedly, we fail to do so, for our legs are not as strong, nor our reflexes as quick as they once were. Suffering from the deterioration of these and other faculties, we fear they will worsen even more in the future. The third suffering is sickness, both mental and physical. We may cry out for help, but no one comes. Given our favorite food, we may find that we have no appetite. We may be in pain and need medicine, but be unable to obtain it. When we do get the medication, we may become dependent upon it, or find that it no longer helps us. Severely troubled, mentally and emotionally, we find that others, unable to relate to our pain, are not always sympathetic. Their inability to empathize just adds to our suffering. The fourth suffering is death. When we are dying, our body is weak, and we are unable to control it. We want to sleep, but our sleep is erratic. Or we want to stay awake, but invariably find ourselves drifting off. We may slip into unconsciousness and be unable to chant. At that point, even if others are chanting for us, it will be hard for us to be born in the Western Pure Land. If we are still conscious, we may want to die because our pain is unbearable or we are utterly exhausted. But still, we live. Fearful of what will happen to us when we die, we do not know which suffering is greater, life or death. So we cling to the former in fear of the latter. The fifth suffering is separation from loved ones. A person we love no longer returns our love and leaves us. Our children grow up and, having busy lives, no longer come to visit. We want to care for our parents, but find ourselves forced to leave them when our work takes us elsewhere. When we are dying, we have to leave all those we love. Worried about their futures, we realize there is nothing we can do, and we suffer even more. The sixth suffering is association with those that one dislikes. This suffering also includes things and situations we dislike. We no longer love the person we once did, but find ourselves trapped in the relationship. required to work with people who always speak ill of us and who we mistrust, we are fearful and ill at ease. Feeling trapped in lives we cannot control, in families whose members are our karmic enemies, in situations with people who hold very different views and goals, we see no end to our suffering. The seventh suffering is unfulfilled desires. We strain against our fate. Those without power crave it. The childless yearn for children. The impoverished dream of wealth. Rarely are our hopes fulfilled and our expectations realized. When we do attain what we want, things change, and we lose what we have. The suffering seems interminable. The eighth suffering is due to the five aggregates of form, feeling, conception, impulse, and consciousness. Simply put, the suffering due to the five aggregates is the absence of both physical and mental well-being. Form, the first aggregate, refers to matter, our physical body. Feeling, the second aggregate, while usually associated with our body, is actually mental phenomena. Feeling includes pain, happiness, and so on. Conception, the third aggregate, refers to the sixth, or mental awareness consciousness. Impulse, the fourth aggregate, refers to the seventh, or thinking mind consciousness. Impulse describes the continuous, uninterrupted flow of thoughts that examines and considers. As soon as one such thought ceases, the next arises immediately, streaming through our mind at an incredible rate. The vast majority of these thoughts are too subtle for us to notice, but we are nonetheless affected by their vibrations. And no matter how subtle the thoughts may be, they are mental karmas, and, as such, will bring about their related karmic effects. Consciousness, the fifth aggregate, refers to the eighth, or store consciousness. Consciousness means storing and is indestructible. Our actions are karmic. They all sow their own seeds, and these accumulate in our store consciousness. When certain seeds in the store consciousness encounter the right conditions, they mature. This maturation leads to the next rebirth and its ensuing life, which, with few exceptions, will be subject to the 8 types of suffering. At the end of this new life, again, some seeds in the store consciousness encounter the right conditions and mature. Once more we are reborn, and once more we suffer. The suffering thus continues like a never-ending spiral. Hoping to help us end our suffering, Sakyamuni Buddha encouraged us to seek birth in the land of ultimate bliss. Once there, we will break out of this cycle of death and rebirth, and only know every kind of joy. How so? There is no suffering from the process of birth, because beings in the Pure Land are born from lotuses, not from the womb. There is no suffering from old age or sickness, because the body is not composed of flesh, blood, and bones. There is no suffering from death, for the lifetime in the Pure Land is infinite and concludes in Buddhahood. Neither is there suffering of separation from loved ones, because beings in that land have no attachments. There is no association with those that one dislikes, because everyone is awakened. And there is no suffering from unfulfilled desires, because should a being have the thought of something, it will appear naturally. As we now know, when seeds in our store consciousness encounter the right conditions, they mature. This process of the seeds ripening causes us to undergo endless rebirths and suffering in samsara, because far too often it is our bad seeds that will develop. In the Pure Land, however, the bad seeds in the being's store consciousness do not have the conditions to mature. Why? Because everything the beings see and hear helps them to give rise to pure thoughts, to chant Amitabha Buddha's name. With only the seeds for goodness and for attaining Buddhahood maturing, the beings no longer give rise to form, feeling, conception, impulse, and consciousness, the five aggregates that had previously kept them trapped in the cycle of rebirth. All these are just some of the reasons why Sakyamuni Buddha assured us that the beings in that land are free from the myriad sufferings common to mankind and only know every kind of joy. From the Sutra. Furthermore, this land is called ultimate bliss because it is surrounded by 7 rings of railings and 7 layers of netting and 7 rows of trees, all made of the 4 precious jewels. Each of the 7 rows of trees is neatly and methodically arranged. The beautiful branches, leaves, fruits, and flowers on the trees are made of precious gems. There is 1 line of railing, then 1 layer of netting, and then 1 row of trees. Beyond that is a 2nd line of railing, a 2nd layer of netting, and a 2nd row of trees, and so on until there are 7 rows of railing, netting, and trees. People may wonder why everything is in 7s. The railings, the netting, the trees. It all seems so rigid. There are reasons for such a specific number. In addition to the number 7 representing the 7 major components of the 37 limbs of enlightenment, the number 7 also stands for perfection in Mahayana Buddhism. Everything in the Pure Land, buildings, clothing, food, and more, reflect the preferences of the beings there. Everything accords with the being's wishes. Everything is, therefore, perfect. This excellence, this perfection, abounds in the Pure Land. For example, no effort is required to build a house, to produce clothes, or to prepare food. The Infinite Life Sutra explains this phenomenon. If a being wants to live in a big house, the house will be big. If a small dwelling is preferred, it will be small. Prefer it to be in the air instead of on the ground, so be it. Everything is as one wishes. This sounds like all the beings in the Pure Land still have desires and wandering thoughts. Not at all. Only those who are newly arrived still do. Those who are more advanced have eliminated their residual habits and wandering thoughts. In the Amitabha Sutra, Sakyamuni Buddha described the lowest land, the land where sages and ordinary beings dwell together. He did so because this is where we will most likely be born. After being born in this land, our residual habits and wandering thoughts will be kept under control. But since they are not yet eliminated, these habits and thoughts can still arise. How? Consider food. In the Pure Land, sustenance is unnecessary. But a being who has not yet eliminated all wandering thoughts may suddenly think of a particular dish. With that thought, the dish will appear. The being, seeing it suddenly materialize and inhaling its aromas, will remember that in the Pure Land, sustenance is not required. With that realization, the food will disappear. Gradually, due to the supportive power of Amitabha's vows, help from their fellow practitioners, and the being's own continued learning and practice, thoughts of things like food and houses will fade. In time, such thoughts will cease. The amazing living environment in the Pure Land, where all this happens, is symbolized by the 4 precious jewels of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, and crystal. These gems represent the 4 attributes of nirvana. The first attribute of nirvana is permanence, which means constancy. In this passage, Sakyamuni Buddha described the unchanging, permanent environment in the Western Pure Land. Except for those newly born in the Pure Land, the vast majority of beings there have eliminated their discriminations, attachments, and wandering thoughts. This results in permanence. In marked contrast, our world is impermanent. We have yet to reduce our wandering thoughts, much less eliminate them. Indeed, we still immerse ourselves in them, rising and falling at an incredible rate. These thoughts are constantly moving, ceaselessly changing. Sakyamuni Buddha often spoke of the 9 Dharma realms, which consist of the hells, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, asuras, the heavens, sound hearers, Prajika Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. Which of these 9 realms we find ourselves in depends on the levels we achieve in our cultivation of the 10 virtuous karmas. Sakyamuni further explained that all phenomena in these realms are created by the mind and altered by the consciousness. The mind refers to the true mind, and the consciousness refers to the false mind. Actually, the true mind and the false mind are the same mind. When one is completely awakened and is no longer deluded, one's mind is the true mind. When one is not yet awakened and is still deluded, one's mind is the false mind. In the Western Pure Land as well, phenomena are created by the mind, but they are not altered by the consciousness. Beings in the Pure Land do not use the consciousness, the false mind. They use the true mind. The true mind is unchanging. The true mind explains why there is permanence in the Pure Land, and the false mind explains why there is impermanence in the 9 Dharma realms. In other words, permanence occurs when beings use the true mind, which is wisdom. In contrast, impermanence occurs when beings use the false mind, which is the consciousness. Consciousness has 8 components, each with its respective function or activity. The first 5 subconsciousnesses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body consciousness, see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, respectively. The 6th subconsciousness, mental awareness, discriminates. The 7th subconsciousness, the thinking mind, attaches. The 8th subconsciousness stores the seeds of our past physical, verbal, and mental karmas. These residual karmas include our wandering thoughts, all our impressions from countless lifetimes over innumerable kalpas. The 8 subconsciousnesses altogether comprise the consciousness. The consciousness is the false mind that we beings in the 9 Dharma realms use. Beings who use the true mind still see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. But these sense consciousnesses do not plant any new seeds in the store consciousness. In other words, with the true mind, these beings have no wandering thoughts, no discriminations, and no attachments. The second attribute of nirvana is joy, which is pure and lasting. In our world, people do not have joy. At best, they can experience happiness, but it is neither pure nor enduring. Joy, on the other hand, is pure and enduring. It comes from progressing in one's cultivation of precept observation, meditative concentration, and wisdom, from advancing on the Bodhi path, and from learning every day. Doing all these, the beings in the Western Pure Land have great joy. The third attribute of nirvana is true self. True self means to be in control, to have freedom. In the cycle of rebirth, we are not in control, not of others, not of the environment, not even of ourselves. After all, we do not wish to get caught up in thoughts of regret or resentment or worry, but we do. We do not desire to be separated from loved ones or to be around those we dislike, but we are. We do not want to get sick or become frail, and yet we will. We are not in control. When we go to the Western Pure Land, however, we will be in control. We will not become sick or frail. We will not age. We will master our bad habits and our wandering thoughts. All these things happen even in the lowest of the four lands, the land where sages and ordinary beings dwell together. The other three lands are the land of expedient liberation, the land of real reward, and the land of eternally quiescent light. Our natural assumption is to think that the lands are separated with prescribed borders. In the Western Pure Land, however, such physical boundaries do not exist. The four lands actually overlap. As a result, we could be in a land where sages and ordinary beings dwell together, while the being next to us is in the land of expedient liberation. Think of the lands as states of mind that we achieve due to our level of practice. The higher the level of attainment in practice, the higher the state of mind, the higher the land. For example, being born in a land where sages and ordinary beings dwell together occurs through constant mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha. Constant mindfulness enables one to use the Buddha name to control afflictions, residual habits, and wandering thoughts. It is like placing a stone on some weeds, with the stone inhibiting the growth of the unwanted plants. They will wither. Continuing to keep the weeds in check will, in time, eliminate them. In constant mindfulness, one is continuously aware of Amitabha Buddha. The degree of awareness can vary. When one is meditating on the name, one single-mindedly chants the name and is focused on it, because one's sole thought is of Amitabha Buddha. There are no wandering thoughts. At other times, because one needs to concentrate on a task, focus will be divided. One will not be able to focus just on chanting. But even though one is not single-mindedly concentrating on the name, one is continuously thinking of Amitabha. Here as well, wandering thoughts do not arise. Understandably, lessened awareness of the name is not as powerful as single-minded focus. But even mindfulness that is not yet single-minded will enable the Buddha name to become more solidly established in our mind. Gradually, our focus will increase, and the chanting of the Buddha name will allow us to restrain our afflictions until we eradicate them. When we attain constant mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha, our afflictions will not arise. Thus, we will neither be angry in adverse conditions, nor be attached to those that are favorable. We will be in this state naturally. There will not be any intentional control. In other words, we will focus on chanting Amitabha's name and will not have to think, I need to chant Amitabha's name to control my afflictions and attachments. Exerting an effort to control these occurs when we are at the stage of learning and practice, at a point when we have not yet achieved constant mindfulness. When we achieve it, we will not exert any effort to control our afflictions and attachments, but will react naturally. There are 9 levels of birth in constant mindfulness. Our achievement will determine which level we will be at. The levels also indicate how and when we pass away. If we are in one of the higher 3 levels, we will be able to pass away whenever we wish. At that time, we can go without any illness. We may be seated or even standing. If we do not yet feel like leaving this world, we can stay longer. Everything can be achieved at will. If we are in the middle 3 levels, we will be able to know a few months in advance when we are going to pass away. Again, we may leave this world standing or seated. If we are in the lower 3 levels, we may know several days in advance of our death, but can become ill before we die. The land of expedient liberation is where arhats, pratyeka Buddhas, and lower-level bodhisattvas, after eradicating the affliction of views and thoughts, dwell. Beings born in this land have attained a lower level of one mind undisturbed, that of one mind undisturbed at the level of phenomena. The land of real reward is where higher-level bodhisattvas dwell. Beings born in this land have attained a higher level of one mind undisturbed, that of one mind undisturbed at the level of noumenon. Through continuous chanting of the Buddha name, they have not only eradicated the affliction of views and thoughts, but have also eradicated the affliction of dust and sand, which is discrimination. The land of eternally quiescent light is the land where Buddhas dwell. Which of these 4 lands we are born in depends on the level of our practice. If we are born in the land where sages and ordinary beings dwell together, we will be able to visit Buddhas in the 10 directions every day to learn from them. If we are born in the land of real reward, we will no longer need to go to other pure lands to learn from different Buddhas. When we want to see a particular Buddha, that Buddha will be right in front of us, even though he is still teaching in his own land. in the land of real reward, we are no longer bound by time and space. There is no need to travel anywhere. The Buddhas in the 3 times of the past, present, and future, and of the 10 directions will be right in front of us. This is an incredible state. The 4th attribute of nirvana is purity, which refers to a mind free of attachments. Do the beings in the Western Pure Land go back to the cycle of rebirth? Yes, they most certainly do. But not because their respective karmic forces pull them back. They go back, and they do so willingly, because of their vows to help those still trapped in suffering. How do they help? By teaching. With pure minds, the bodhisattvas in the Western Pure Land have no attachments, not even when they are in the heavens to help beings there. Neither do the bodhisattvas have afflictions, not even when they are in the hells, where suffering abounds, to help the beings there. To the bodhisattvas, the 10 Dharma realms are all the same. Thus, wherever they go in the realms, bodhisattvas have no afflictions and no attachments. Although they do not feel happiness or suffering, when they return to the cycle of rebirth, they sometimes act like they do. Such skillful behavior facilitates teaching, for it helps people feel that awakened beings are not so very different from them. People are thus inspired to think, if they can succeed in their cultivation, I too should be able to succeed. When they go to a world to teach the beings there, bodhisattvas manifest in the most suitable form for each being. They do so intuitively and naturally. And they do so in countless Dharma realms at the same moment in time. This is true joy, true purity. In our world, the 4 attributes of permanence, joy, true self, and purity do not exist. Everything here is impermanent, and there is no real happiness. There is no true self. People are attached to their physical body, believing it to be the self. But the body is not in control. It has no freedom. Also, people's minds are not pure here. Their thoughts are tainted with selfishness, greed, anger, ignorance, and arrogance. The reality is that this world is painfully different from the Western Pure Land, where there is permanence, joy, true self, and purity. Why remain here when we can go to that land instead?